If you want to trade crypto but are struggling to find the most significant support and resistance levels, then you have found the right video. So in order to draw support and resistance levels correctly, I actually have a support and resistance formula that I use to find my support and resistance levels. And we're going to talk about this formula step by step very soon. But before we dive into this formula, I think it's important to just mention that when it comes to support and resistance, pretty much all traders have slightly different methods. So there are not only one correct way to draw support and resistance. You can have slight variations on how you draw your support and resistance levels, but there are some principles that pretty much all traders agree with. The first principle is what we talked about earlier, that if you draw way too many support and resistance levels, this will only make the chart harder to read and it will be harder to make your analysis. So that is one principle. But now let's take a look at some other important principles when it comes to draw your support and resistance levels. And the first principle I'm doing is that you want to zoom out. So when you are trading and you're getting, too close to the chart, it can be super easy to, try to overanalyze everything. If you really try to, you can find levels that looks like potential support and resistance pretty much everywhere. So that is why the first step in my formula to draw support and resistance is to zoom out, take one step back from the chart and try to identify the levels that are super clear on the chart and that pretty much all traders can see. The next step here is, pretty much what I just recently said. What we want to do here is that we want to only draw the most obvious levels. So for example, if we take a look at the chart we have right here, we can see that the upper resistance zone is very obvious. If you zoom back, you can clearly see this resistance. We had one touch right here, and during this part we got multiple tests of the resistance, and the sort of final nail in the coffin was this very strong reaction on the resistance area. To get a strong reaction like we saw right here, we need to have either lots of sellers or smart money stepping in and selling. So this is a great indication that we're talking about a strong resistance level. And the same thing is true with the support. We can see that we have a pretty obvious support here. Right here, we can see that the level got tested multiple times. And we can also see that the last reaction here was a very strong reaction towards the upside. So that is a good indication that we're talking about strong support. And we can also see here that after the we had pretty much a crash right here, we can actually see, where did the buyers step in? Well, buyers came in multiple times at the support level. So this is yet another obvious level here on the chart. And we're actually very soon going to take a look at how this chart actually played out in the future. So stay tuned for that. But before we do that, we have some other rules you need to pay attention to. The third rule here we have already talked about actually. And that is that we want to draw zones. At least in my opinion, it's preferable to draw zones and not lines. And the reason for this is that if you draw lines on your chart, it's easy to sort of think that these levels have to be perfect. And if you draw lines on the chart, you will realize that many times the price will go either a bit higher or a bit lower. Support and resistance levels will pretty much never be perfect levels, perfect lines on the chart. Most of the times they will be zones, so why not draw zones instead of drawing lines? And we will talk about later on in this video how we can draw our zones here correctly. And last but not least, and this is super important, and this is also a principle that I think that many traders, especially educators on YouTube and so on, actually have wrong. And that is that strong bounces or reactions are more important than many bounces and reactions. So for example, if you have watched other videos on YouTube, you will hear that many people say something like this. They will say that, the more touches we have on a support level, the stronger the support level becomes. And from my experience, this is not really true. Actually, we will talk about this later on in this video. Sometimes multiple reactions of a support can actually be a sign of weakness, and we will talk about why. But in my opinion, what we want to look out for here, rather than many bounces, is that we want to look out for very clear and strong bounces on the support or resistance. So I really prefer to see strong and clear bounces compared to sort of weak and many bounces. And why is that? Well, a strong bounce, let's say a strong bounce from a support level, that indicates that we are really seeing buying pressure at that level. But if the price comes down to a support and you only see a tiny bounce, that movement is more likely to be random, because in order to see a tiny bounce, it could actually just be normal market noise. Okay, so we have been talking about this resistance right here as a very clear resistance. We have been talking about this support right here as a very clear support. But what about this level in the middle? And this one is not as clear in my opinion, but this is still a valid level that I decided to have on the chart here. And the reason for this level is because this was a level where we saw really clear touches. So for example, first of all, we saw a touch right here. This touch was pretty clear. We saw a strong movement up and a strong reaction. But at this point in time, it's not really enough to draw a resistance or support. Then we can see that the price came down here. You can see we sort of tested this one. The resistance flipped to become support. But this was once again not really too strong touches. So still at this point, I would not really draw the level. But when we saw this final very strong reaction of this level as a resistance, now we have at least two very strong reactions as resistance right here, and we also have two smaller ones as support. So at this point, I think that we have enough information to actually include this level on the chart. Alright, so now let's open up this chart in TradingView and see how these sort of support and resistance levels played out. But real quick, before we do this, I just want to give a quick shout out here to TradingView. TradingView is the charting program I use for all my technical analysis. And in my opinion, it is the best tool for both beginner traders and more advanced traders. And if you guys for some reason don't use TradingView yet, I actually have a special link that will be available both down in the description and the top comment of this video. And you can use that link to try out TradingView Premium for free for 30 days. And after the free trial, you can either decide to go for the TradingView free version. TradingView has a very good, in my opinion, free version, costs nothing at all. But if you decide to upgrade to a premium plan after your free trial, when using the link, you will also get a $15 bonus. And at the same time, you will help out the channel. But alright guys, so now let's take a look at how this trade played out. And let's begin here by focusing on the middle line right here. Remember that we included this level because we saw a strong reaction right here. We saw two small touches right here. And then we saw yet another strong reaction. After all of these points, we had enough information to sort of include this in our chart. And what we can see is that once again, the price came down, right? Tested the support. The price came up. And once again, we saw selling pressure coming in at this level. And you can even see that the price tested it one more time. It tried to break above. We even saw this sort of massive wick all the way down here. But the sellers managed to push the price once again, holding the resistance. But eventually we saw this massive breakout, right? And you can see that this breakout even pushed above. It even pushed above this key resistance level. And as you know from before, when we see a break of an important level, this can lead to even more buying pressure because we have lots of orders around that level. So you can see that after we broke this important resistance, the price just continued to, push higher and higher and higher. And we can actually see here that this was actually the beginning of a sort of, this was actually the beginning of the Bitcoin bull run. You can see this breakout all the way down here, a break of a key resistance was the beginning of this massive run. So this video was actually just a very short clip from our full support and resistance course here on the channel. To watch the course for free, simply click or tap on the screen right here. I hope I will see you all in the full video very soon.